Mino Line Media presents the Business First Podcast.
Hi, all, and welcome to a new episode of Business First with Sonia Alleyne. I am your host, and today we welcome Kelli Lester, who is the co-founder and partner of Onyx Rising, a change management consulting firm specializing in behavioral transformation. Welcome, Kelli.
Thank you so much, Sonia.
Yeah, how are you today?
I'm great, right? I'm manifesting my next thing.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. And I think at a time when people feel like they have less control over their lives, it's important to feel like you can manifest the things that you are desiring. And it sounds like you do a lot of that work. That's what you do professionally. Help people see something a little differently and help them attain where they want to go.
Absolutely. I think the way we describe it is creating a plan to rise. Even though at times people have a hard time, especially underrepresented folks, depending on our situation, even visioning where we want to be is hard, right? But once you can do that, if you can bite the elephant, as they say, one bite at a time, you can move forward. And so we really pride ourselves on helping people. I love to help people not only understand the vision, create the vision, but cast that vision and then operationalize it.
Right. And I think for a lot of us, it's the operationalizing. That's the thing. If you can get someone to see it, then it's really how can we get there? And you do that for individuals as well as for corporations, correct?
Absolutely. So individuals, I think about it as maybe your own plan, but we specialize in financial wellness. And that's really how the business got started in the first place. So Onyx Rising is really about how do we really help Black and Brown communities not only sustain, but I would say maintain, but then sustain and then build legacies. So really it's around financial management. And that's our specialty. And then when it comes to organizations, it is both individuals, leaders, employees, but then also how do we even develop inclusive leaders and then inclusive and innovative culture. So that change management is a lot more complicated. Because it involves many people, but I love it. I'm one of those people that I lean into change. I embrace it, and most people like run from it. But I love it. It's something I love to do. So it makes sense then, and we specialize as well. But historically, it was called diversity, equity, and inclusion, but we've been pivoting as well and just focus more in on leaders because leaders make more decisions. So they have an opportunity to change the culture. If you're a leader of your family, you have a different power dynamic if you're head of household, right? So it's our leadership can actually create environments where it's easy to change or more difficult to change. So it gets a little more complicated with organizations.
Okay. Well, you said several things that I'd like us to get further into. And the first is, and I love it that you say you lean into change. And what is it that you think it is about your personality or what you may have experienced in your, in your lifetime that allows you to see change as a really good thing?
Well, I'll just share a very quick story. My mother told me this, God rest her soul. She told me, so we were moving a lot as a child. We would move from apartment to apartment in my adolescent years. And, most people get set up to tell their kids, we're about to move. And, and then they cry about their friends that they'll lose in the school, they'll leave in the community. And I was like, I'll just start a whole new life. That was my reaction. So I didn't realize that I've been leaning into it for a very long time. And it gives me a rush, first of all, but also I just love helping people reach their destination. So, I'm one of the kids that got bored and then I'm like ready to move on to the next thing. As I work with clients, I like to help start. I'm here to support you or helping leaders in this season. And someone else may take you to the next place, right? So I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Right. And so, and for change for you, is it imposed change or things that are forcing you to change or choices? Are you good with either one? If something comes your way and redirects you, you're good with that? Or if you decide you know what? I think I need to do something differently.
Well, in all transparency, I love control. I'm
Okay.
also a recovering perfectionist.
Okay.
So, so I won't say I have it there. That is a new space in my journey personally. But no,
Right.
I definitely believe that my mentor used to say, nobody likes change but a wet baby, right? So
Right.
some people are forced into it, right? We all probably have times in
Right.
our life where we would have never made that choice. At the same time, reflecting on it, had that not happened, had that valley storm negative situation happen, where would we be today? And
Mm-hmm.
I can even say that relative to my money management testimonial. So, which really is the impetus of our business, right? I grew up where I saw people in my community and my family passing the hat when people passed away. And I kept
Yeah.
seeing that. And I didn't really understand it. I was a young adult, and we didn't have a lot of money. We grew up, very humble, if you will, modest. And at the same time, I saw how well my mother managed money, but she didn't really
Right.
know. I never saw her save, so we weren't well off. So no one talked about the importance of money and how to save. And then as I'm seeing people then leave our family, passing away,
Yeah.
and not being prepared. And then it happened multiple times. I would say we had an extra dose of death actually in our family because it was
Wow.
happening back to back. And it
Yeah.
really bothered me. And then later on, I ended up getting married and got a divorce. And right in the process of the divorce, I had quit claim deeded the house over to my ex-husband. And I also left a lot in his name. I thought I was, Ike Tina Turner, right? I was like, I just want my name and I'm out, right? But he ended up passing away, and I ended up taking on
Wow.
all that debt. So I was $250,000 in debt. And I ended up
Ah.
getting out of debt, being very disciplined, and didn't file bankruptcy. And so, so sometimes I think paying attention to really like what's going on with your money, with your situation. And I would have never chosen that life. But had that not happened, I probably wouldn't have been good with money. I probably would not have managed a, multi-million-dollar budget in corporate, many
Yeah.
things. So it forced me to be comfortable with money when I may have been uncomfortable with it previously. So no, we don't always get to make the choice.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting that you said that, your experiences helped you deal with how you could manage your money personally, but what also you managed corporately. And what we used to find, at least when I was covering corporate professionals, is that some people who were really great at managing huge corporate budgets
Mhm.
were not managing their personal finances well. And so you saying that reminded me of it. And so for the services that you offer, do you work with what level of professional or person on an individual basis do you work with?
Yeah, great question. When we first started the business, we really did group and individual coaching. And I would say my target audience at that time was much broader. And then I realized that, we were getting people that were at retirement trying to prepare for retirement. So we
Yeah.
started, right, we started to create then obviously a focus of our target audience over time. And we realized this is something that everybody needs many times, or maybe we weren't being educated about finances as young
Right.
people. And even quite frankly, as a quick departure, our mindset about money has to shift, which is why
Yeah.
whoever you're speaking of, right, you can handle the multi-million-dollar budget at work, but not at home. Is some of that is our mindset about money,
Mm.
taking care of other people, right? Feeling obligated. So there's a lot in it when you really get underneath. But I would say that when the services we offer, we started out offering them in our church. And that's really where we
Okay.
discovered, oh, wow, this is a business opportunity, because not only did this 6 to 8 week course start out 6, got extended to 8, and then we had 100 people and it grew, right? And so that really was the impetus of the business. So we really started making sure that organizations see this as an employee benefit or a congregational benefit, and make that part of their benefits package. So now we focus exclusively on group coaching, with also we do follow up. So we'll come in and do workshops. So the difference with what we do and a lot of folks on the financial wellness side is we don't sell products at all. We are really packaging
Okay.
education to help people not only understand the basics, right? Because a lot of people have credit, know their credit score, but don't really know what their credit score means. They don't know how to make it,
Right.
they also don't know the difference between an emergency fund and a savings account, right? So, but they're ready to try to have a conversation about investment, right? If you don't have a budget written
Right.
down electronically, or at least
Right.
handwritten, you don't really have a budget if it's in your head. So we start with the basics. We call it money matters, image versus reality. A lot of our young people and a lot of, I won't just say young people, Gen Xers too, we're looking at this image we're trying to live up to, right? And not living within our means. And it robs us, I would
Yeah.
say, of wealth and worth sometimes. So we really look at that as well as sustain and maintain. So I hope
Yeah.
that makes sense in terms of just.
Yeah, no, it not only did it make sense, it resonated because I had been in a coaching program not too long ago, and I was amazed at how much I kept in my head,
Mm,
right? Like it was stuff that I just you feel like you know what it is.
hmm
And so there were a lot of things that I didn't write down because I know what it is. I know what I got to do this month. I know what I got to do at the end of the month. I know all of these things, and writing it down and looking at it
hmm
was very different than what I thought I was doing or how I thought I was handling
Yeah.
the finances. So yes, that absolutely resonates strongly with me, and I hope it does with folks who are listening.
Yeah, it's
Um,
almost like, do you know where your money's going? Are you in control of that, or
yeah,
is it controlling you? Right.
yeah,
And the other thing is, it's not. I think some people look at budget as a restriction. No, you
right.
got a
I
shopping
did.
thing, then budget for your shopping thing. Just give yourself
Yeah,
a certain amount a month that you're going to do on that
yeah,
shopping thing, and then purge some things, sell those
right.
on Poshmark, right? So just
Yeah,
really think, don't restrict yourself. I really started out figuring out I knew how to save when I had a goal. And so I'm big on putting a vacation on layaway since I was in my 20s. And so that was something I have a high value for, the experience,
for
if you will. And so
right.
I budget. Most people don't know that, but I mean, in December, I'm planning all of my vacations, not work trips, literally
Wow.
for the
Okay.
year, and even who's going with me, right? If I'm choosing to pay for it. I have a lot of young cousins in my family that in my opinion, I'm the auntie, right? So,
Hmm.
and instead of buying them Christmas gifts, I started 529 plans, college plans, and
Oh
invited
wow.
the rest of the family as well to, like, hey, it's Neil's birthday, it's Christmas. Instead of buying him a toy, you can donate to his college fund. So I just
Oh
really
wow.
think about the things that are important to you, then just create that budget around it. Things that you enjoy, create that budget around it. But you also don't want an unforeseen circumstance to put you in a situation where, you're homeless. And some of
Right.
our folks are living like that, really.
Yeah. Yeah. You've explained a lot of it in just this brief conversation, but I'd like to get more of a sense of the foundation of your business, which is this behavioral transformation. Like, how do you set about creating programs or strategies for people to have these transformations so that they can live the lives that they are planning for?
Yeah. So when it comes to the financial wellness side, I did talk a lot about it, but we really start with the mindset of money. So if you think
Mhm.
about it, it's an assessment, an individual assessment. If it's an organization,
Mhm.
we actually conduct an organizational assessment around the health and the inclusivity of your culture. And that way,
Right.
what you're looking to change are the things that you want to change, number one. And number
Mhm.
two, the strategies that you will employ, whether individual or organization, fit you. So, on a
Okay.
practical level, on the financial wellness side, I had to get at the core of one of my clients. It's like, okay, so why? Why do you keep overspending? And it boiled down to her shopping habit was when she got bored, right? And instead,
Okay.
any dead time, she was at Macy's, she was at the mall, right? So we had to create strategies for her that worked for her. Some people do well, so she decided to read a book instead when that happens. I mean, and
Right.
we really had to coach her through that. Some people, for myself, for example, I don't carry cash on me at all, right? it is not good. Others, they need that to say, when I run out, I'm done. So we really look at the unique, build relationships and look at the uniqueness of the organization, culture, the individual, what will work, and then help them really develop and chart that plan. When it comes to organizations, I have a model I call the Destin model, right? And so it really starts out with the D is like, ultimately, how are we defining success, right? And then let's create a vision around that. And then the E is really like evaluate where you are against where you want to be, right? And then when we get to the S, it's right, like, are we really looking at strategies to then close the gap? And then we make sure that when you get to our education and training, that you have those. And then N is really about normalizing it and then making sure that people feel empowered. So when we work with clients in terms of specific solutions on the financial wellness side, we have our Money Matters workshop series. And when it comes to the inclusive leadership side, it's really a multitude of solutions, mostly focusing on developing inclusive skills. So inclusive leadership is really the core. I think it's the future of leadership. I've been around quite a while, and I would say in organizations, they have leadership models. If they have them, do they hold people accountable to those expected behaviors? Well, when it comes to inclusion, many times people are looking at this whole topic. I know we've been talking about DEI since, I don't know, the fall, right? Or even longer than that in a negative way. But essentially what they're really trying to change the vernacular on what it means is many organizations and people have misdefined it, right? They think it excludes people, but it really includes all the things that make us who we are. And so when we look at that, we'll look at that with organization and say, what's most important? Is it generational diversity? Is it gender diversity? Is it about introverts, extroverts? Who is successful in your organization? What does he or she need to look like to be successful here? Is it a proximity issue? Meaning only the people that get promoted are the ones that are in headquarters or have access to leadership. So we really open people's mind up around what it means and then help them see which one of these are at the core most important to them. So for example, as a lot of clients are changing the name of DEI, rebranding, trying to figure out what do we do with this strategy? I really look at, well, what does your organization do? And so one of my clients is in financial services and they don't understand young people and their habits around usage of technology and how they'll purchase products. And so when you don't understand your customer or client, it impedes your ability to be successful. So what we focus on is, I'll be honest with you, I'm a business person before I understood human resources. So I really get excited when I understand how, yes, it's a nice thing to do, but what is the business impact or mission driven? And I help organizations really create that case for change. So if they are looking at something specific around a dimension of diversity, it makes sense for knowledge exchange because everyone's retiring that's 55 and above, right, in the next 5 years, and you have no plan to get that knowledge or keep your business running. So yeah, you've been around for 50 years, but do you want to be around 50 more? Right? So inclusive leadership is the future of leadership, or you won't be able to communicate with your workforce. Heck, some of us won't even be able to communicate with our husbands, our kids, our wives, our family members.
So true. It's so true. So what was happening in 2016? You had spent a long time in this area of diversity and inclusion.
Yes.
What was happening in 2016 when you decided to start this company? When you partnered, what were the discussions and what were you seeing in the industry and what was happening in the positions where you worked that you needed to do something different?
Yeah, well, this is a fun story. So the organization really was birthed from the financial wellness side. So my business partner was asked by her minister to start the financial wellness program. Or just to do a series. And that's really was the impetus. So previously we were called Onyx Rising Financial Services, right? And I kept my day job, right? So this is my third business, but I had never worked full time for myself. So I was like many of probably your listeners, ultimately I got laid off, right? I had been in the space of marketing, media, communications for a decade, and then moved into diversity, equity, and inclusion. Had a multicultural marketing business initially while I worked in corporate. Said, can I really cut my teeth and do this in a big company? I knew I could do it in media, right? There's an old saying in media that that C students, and it's a horrible saying, but they were like the C students. I'm like, that is a horrible thing to say, or we're the pretty people because we're on TV or the radio if we sound good and don't look good, right? So we had this thing, and so I thought I knew that industry. I grew up in that industry, but could I do it in a conservative industry? And so that's when I went on to do the work corporately, and then for 10 years and as a consultant working with all kinds of, the Chicago Bears was my client, Iron Man. I had a lot of the sports and entertainment industry. I had a lot of beautiful clients, just great clients. And then I left there, decided I need to slow it down, come home, stop being on the road all the time, moved back to my hometown of Indianapolis, and then joined another organization as a coach and strategist. And I got laid off, and it was one of the best opportunities. I mean, I always knew I needed to be an entrepreneur. I think I was on the ledge and just wouldn't jump off, right? So this really kind of forced me to jump off. And we then dropped the financial services off the name, created the two service lines, if you will, diversity and inclusion, and then financial wellness, and eventually rebranded to inclusive leadership and innovation. So I will say, you heard the story about the financial wellness. It's the heart of building our community. I believe that when Black entrepreneurs build wealth, they build worth, and we get to even build our community. We're hiring people. So it's just, and then the work, aligning my purpose with my passion, the paper comes, right? When you do that, right? So that was really a no-brainer. I think I didn't have the courage or something to do 100%. I'm always thinking like, we need multiple incomes, right? So when that happened, I got great support. I don't know if as women, sometimes I don't know if we really know our worth, but it was demonstrated, right? People had always been buying you, right? so I was, and the work you do makes a difference. And if so, people will refer you. And I would say that the business then took off. It just really expanded, and it was growing. My baby was growing even without, me and my business partner, on its own. So it really became about, now where's our focus? And that's when we really said leadership, right? Is that focus? And we really need to make this an employee benefit on the financial wellness side, because people almost don't know they need it. They just are struggling, right? So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. No, absolutely. In fact, it's a perfect lead into, I noticed that you have, I'm asking, I don't know if you teach this or this is part of your, how do I rephrase that? I don't know if this is something that you teach or if it's an idea that is present in your company, but it's the 7 inclusive traits, leadership traits. Yes. Can you walk us through a few of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 7 inclusive leadership traits. And so with this focus on leadership, what are those behaviors? And I would say whether you are already a people leader or you aspire to be a leader or be a better leader, right? Think about how do you put some of these in your toolkit. So I'll just highlight a few. So number one is self-awareness. A lot of times people come into the topic, especially when it was labeled, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion, thinking that, I'm going to learn about other people, other cultures. And you will. But if you first don't know yourself and how you see the world, it will be very difficult to navigate this world or the relationship or the relationships successfully, because you'll keep running into motivating people in a way that motivates you without truly understanding what motivates them. So they can get to the same finish line, but we're trying to motivate them the way we are motivated, and it doesn't work, right? So self-awareness in terms of understanding our core, understanding our values, understanding why do I think the way that I do. I was recently sharing, everybody's heard about, I think during the holidays, the story where, I think the mother was making a turkey and she cuts it and the other partner says, well, why did you do it that way? And she's like, well, that's the way my mother always did it. But the mother did it because she had a small pan, right?
A small
I have
pan,
a similar
right?
story in terms of my mother used to always put her shoes underneath the bed, and so did I. But when I got married, my husband, who had, was more well-to-do than I was, I'm putting him in the bed, but they did that. Come to find out, they were doing that because they had 8 kids in 2 bedrooms, right? They had 2 bedrooms. So the boys' room was really, I think, the dining room. They'd get turned into the dining room. So they had no room in the closet, and they were so I didn't even understand. So we were having disagreements, and that's what's going to happen. You're going to have disagreements and clashes trying to lead the way you were taught to lead in the 80s. Or the 90s, right? And it's 2025, right? So you are going to have conflict with your partner, spouse, your team, right? Trying to motivate people the same way. I love my mentor. She told me once, never cry at work. It is a career killer for a woman. Well, and she was right? But if someone comes in my office crying and I'm uncomfortable, right? And I'm not listening, but that is their truth, right? So some people are bringing their whole selves to work. I say, bring your best self, but bring your whole self. Right. And how as leaders do we navigate and deal with that? So self-awareness. The other one is one that I'd like to highlight is amplifying others. And I would say
amplifying others.
And I would even say specifically amplifying diverse voices or unpopular ideas, right? In a culture, you may be trying to change the culture or get people into a new idea. Well, you got to hear almost 10 bad ideas before you hear the good idea, right? You also can't take credit for everything. We know that. But sometimes diverse voices are navigating your organization, or underrepresented folks are navigating and they're never heard. And if you're in rooms and can recognize your privilege, right, then you can be an advocate for others. And so this was realized for me as when my boss was an advocate for me years and years ago. And I'll just make this quick. I was considered a high potential in the organization. And apparently there was an opportunity to move up. And in order to move up, you had to work in the field before you could move to the VP level. So unbeknownst to me, my name comes up. Oh, well, consider Kelli. She's a hypo. So then someone said, oh, she can't do that. She's a single mom. And my boss said, well, wait a minute, let's ask her. That's all she did. So this wasn't a whistleblow, a dramatic thing. Nobody protested, right? She just didn't allow that to just fly, right? And so we have to speak up in moments, in rooms, and advocate when people aren't necessarily in the room for the rooms we are in, right? And we also need to make sure that we're amplifying those kinds of experiences and voices, right? I know people in their good-hearted way, they really thought they were doing me a favor, almost protecting me. Like, oh my gosh, she's a single mom, as if it was like the scarlet letter, right? And I know it was coming from an empathetic place because I heard it multiple times. I just didn't understand why, it was looked at the way it was by people who didn't experience it. And had she not said anything, I wouldn't even be sitting here today, right? I give her credit all the time. She's probably sick of me using the example, but I mean, I want to thank that person, right, who really spoke up for me. And now it's my turn to do the same for others. So amplify and advocate it's really huge. So, but we definitely look at seeking and feedback, giving, seeking, and receiving feedback. I think we're all pretty good at receiving it at a certain stage in our career. And we're probably pretty good at giving it as a leader. But I don't think we naturally seek it. And when we do, we seek it from people who are going to agree with us. I got my go-to people, okay? A lot of people have their go-to people and my go away from people, as my mentor used to say, right? But we have to really say, well, I'm leaning into someone that thinks differently from me, and I'm going to seek feedback from an unlikely source, a person that thinks different, a person that isn't going to agree with me, that will poke holes in my strategy, making me better, right? And so a lot of times I think people don't even look at the topic as correction, right? It's to really make us better. But many leaders don't even know how to deliver it in a way where people will receive it. They don't know how to create an environment of psychological safety, which is another one of the inclusive leadership skills.
Well, I definitely think you have a book there, because what the one that strikes me the most is the self-awareness, which is always talked about in terms of personal transformations, but rarely talked about in terms of professional and business transformations. And so how difficult has that been in terms of getting people to be self-aware? And the second part is, what are some of the aha moments? I'm sure you have some great ones when people discover like, oh, this is how I am. Oh, I didn't see myself in that light.
That's a great question. The difficulty is combining the head, the heart, and the hands. I would say people are just genuinely good people. They really are. And I love working with people that I think the people in my industry will say, meet them where they are. But you've got to actually do that. Right. And so for me, I love working with people no matter just in their truth, meaning you're not trying to fake it. Right. I don't want to work with clients that are checking the box. I'm not your consultant. Right. I don't want to even have my brand associated with that. But if you're serious, like I recognize I'm here and I don't care where low or where you think that is, but and have a sincerity to elevate. So I would say that's a prerequisite for me, but I would say in terms of people not understanding is when they can't connect their head, their hands, and their heart. So the head does it make logical business sense, right? So it makes business sense to make sure all of your employees feel welcomed and like coming to work, right? Have opportunities to develop or whatever, right? So that head, right? The business case in a way. And then the heart is, kind of why, what's my why? Why should I care? And then we can go to the work. Most of the time, my first phone call is, what do I do? Right? Which is the hands, right? And you got to kind of get to the head and the heart and bring that together. And I would say in terms of a story, it's a simple one, but I think as a woman and a mom, it's really impactful. And even I would say generational diversity is one of my things now. I just love it because you can really get learning from everywhere, right? But I was coaching an executive. He happened to be a white male. My direct diversity, equity, inclusion director, she thought he was not bought in. And I would say, no, lean into the naysayers. They're going to teach you how to blow holes in your thing, right? Your plan, your strategy, your walk around deck, and they're going to make you better. And if he's an influencer, you need to build a relationship with him, right? And stop staying in your comfort zone, right? So I leaned in and I kept coaching him. And what I've discovered is he understood the head. He even understood some of the to-dos, and he was going through the motions. He had mentored people that didn't look like him. But it wasn't until his heart turned where it made a difference. And it was his daughter who ended up going into the workforce during my time consulting this company, that the light bulb came on, and he had a personal experience, not his, but seeing his baby girl, right, have all this trouble entering the workforce. And she's a woman, and that ended up making him the biggest advocate for females in the workplace. And then further deepening his knowledge on his own, right? And so that's really, I think, is the thing that unlocks it, is the head, the heart, and the hands.
So what are your plans moving forward? Like I said, just you starting, you gave us like 3 of the 7. I mean, that sounds like it really does sound like a great book idea. Are you and you describe all of these things very well. Like, I mean, they're inspiring, the way you talk about the work and the people that you work with. Are you planning to do books? Do you do tours where you do speaking engagements? Are those some of the things that you do to better tell the story of what you do?
Yeah, well, I will say, so my partner already has a book, Leading in Chaos, and it's interesting, it's getting a lot more traction, which is really her life story, right? And
Right.
so she really broke barriers for us. I'll say it that way. So she's seasoned, right? And those stories are interesting. It's almost like reading soap opera in a way, but they're true stories. So she worked with Marion Barry in DC, and so, but we are really seeing a surgence with that book right now because people are dealing with chaos. And so, reconnecting. So, and then, yes, the inclusive leadership, I plan to do two things. First is I want to launch my own podcast, but talking to everyday leaders. I think this topic and the people in my industry, and even myself probably initially, we overcomplicate and when I really started listening to my clients and understanding, what makes you want to work with Onyx Rising, it is because we make it practical. And we can, people can individually make the change, and then practical in what actions can be taken in a realistic way. So with that said, yes, the book will come. I would really love to tell more stories around inclusive leadership that people can relate to, so that they don't turn off their, oh, well, you're a woman, I'm not listening. Oh, we need to make sure in the space of creating innovation and creating more inclusive cultures that sometimes you're not the messenger that's needed. And so I do want my book to have that flavor of other leadership stories, not just mine, right? Maybe yours, right?
Yeah. I mean, those points that you made resonate with me strongly because, I covered business for a long time. I've worked for a lot of different people. I've listened to, I've attended a lot of conferences, and I think people generally believe in all of these principles, right?
Mm-hmm.
They believe that these are the right things to do, but have a hard time implementing them. Or if they are leaders, being those people that, I've sat and listened to leaders give amazing speeches where you feel like, yes, we can do this. And then their behavior becomes something totally different. And the self-awareness piece, sorry to harp on that part, but that I think is just so key for, and again, like I said, it's always in terms of personal development. Like they always lead with self-awareness in that. But to understand that as a leader is as what you do is transformative. Absolutely.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you for that encouragement.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And I would love to invite you back, as you are, because you said, when did you decide to pivot? You started the company in 2016 and then you pivoted.
Yeah, so I think, there's been a lot of pivots, right?
Okay. Pivoting is good.
I would say it's been 3.5 years that I came on full time. The business has been around since 2016. Okay. And the entrepreneurship journey is one of the best. It's exhilarating and scary all at the same time. But again, I'm a change person, right? So I love blank sheet of paper. I'll reinvent myself all the time. I love it. And it keeps me alive, right? It's interesting and so forth. And I'm a problem solver, right? So I ultimately pay for solving other people's problems. You know what I mean? So this gets me an opportunity to solve my own, right? And evolve. And I think practice what you preach, right? So I would love to come back. You've been an encouragement to me just talking to you. The book was there, but I was like, when you said that, I'm like, I'm the podcast first though.
I agree, don't read. That'll help sell. That'll help sell the book. So that's fine.
Well, and we've got an attention span issue, right? I love books.
Oh, I know.
But a lot of people, they really, give me the book in a Cliff Notes version on YouTube. The way we're learning today.
I know that's unfortunate. But I would love to have longer conversations around change, because that is, I was actually telling a friend of mine today that, although, where we are politically is challenging, I'll say that on a public platform. I also feel like there's some really good things that can happen, because it is forcing us to think differently, to do things differently. And although, the other candidate would have been, obviously the better candidate, we would have been doing a lot of the same things. Like this has taught us that we have to change. Usually we're sitting going, oh, that's what they do in politics. Oh, that's the typical, we kind of sit and watch. We don't really participate in what happens politically. This is forcing us to get involved, to read, to understand, we're seeing people showing up at the town halls in larger numbers. And as hard as this is, I do think that's if you choose to look for benefits in chaos, I think that's the benefit, that we're being forced to react and to think and look around, and people are realizing that DEI was me too, right? It wasn't just the people that we needed to get rid of. It's also me too. And I don't think they would have realized that if we didn't go through this political exercise.
Yeah, I'm glad currently in. I'm glad you said that. I think the other thing, as a person of color and a mother, it's okay. I don't know if anybody has children that went off to college, or if you went off to college. There's this moment where the parent is like, "Oh my God, what didn't I teach?
Yeah,
like what did I forget?"
Yeah,
right. And we may not have forgotten anything, but there was nothing that could prepare our children, right, and those that are just recently graduated college, for what's happening. And we may have shielded them in some way, just based upon, each generation does a little better. You may have missed that. And so if you aren't intentional to teach, and you're in the middle class or you're close to it, if you aren't intentional in teaching grit, right, this moment it could be a make or break moment for young African Americans, for example, navigating the world when they thought it was this way. So back in the day, and even before my time, I think we saw people to bring us together and communicate could go to your church, it's done. Could go on a TV station and, one network, and we all saw it. And so now the question becomes, in a society where anything goes, and we no longer had to have that level of grit because we were building this next step for our next generation, where do we go to get the plan? And so I do have a hope that it pivots us into creating the next level of leaders, and also more entrepreneurs, right? More of our own. Again, building wealth, building worth, and building community.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kelli, let us know how we can stay in touch and find you and be the benefactor of your services.
Well, you can find us at www.onyx2rise.com, onyx2rise.com.
Okay. And are you on social as well?
Of course, you can find me, Kelli Lester, on LinkedIn, and also Onyx to Rise on LinkedIn, Instagram, and we're on TikTok now. So,
yay! Thank you so much, Kelli. It was a pleasure talking to you and meeting you.
Thank you, Sonia. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you all for listening, and we'll be back again next week with another great guest. Take care.
The Business First podcast is hosted and produced by Sonia Alleyne. Executive producer Ken Johnson. Find the Business First podcast on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, Odyssey, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, TuneIn, or wherever you get your podcast. On social media on IG at business_first_podcast. Follow the Mean Old Line Media Podcast Network on IG at Mean Old Line Media. Get the Mean Old Line Media app in the App Store or Google Play. The Business First podcast is a Mean Old Line Media production.